I welcome you warmly to our channel.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into a really complex story of institutional failure. But our main source isn't some dry legal report.
No, it's something much more, I guess, vivid. It's a narrative account, almost like a poem called The Ballad of the Low College.
It is powerful. It
Mhm.
captures this huge tragedy of systemic collapse, but through these really specific personal stories.
It really does. I mean, we're looking at how an entire legal education system, a structure that was literally designed to uphold the law, was just, hollowed out from the inside.
And that's the central conflict, isn't it? The thing that makes this so fascinating is this massive contradiction. The institution started with the absolute best intentions.
Oh, the noblest. The ballad opens with this statesman who wanted purity for the land. He had this vision of parliament that would rise by learned hand.
The whole point was for the law to guard the realm.
And that's our mission for this deep dive, to chart that journey from that noble idea, which the source calls wisdom's fire, to the corrupted reality it became.
A reality it calls a colder coal.
Exactly. And we're going to break down the specific ways the fraud worked. We'll start with individual cheating and move all the way up to full institutional complicity. We're going to see how the system went from guarding the law to, well, guarding the bold.
So we've structured this around 3 layers of deception. And we have to start at the beginning, right at the entrance gate, where the whole idea of integrity was just, well, demolished.
Okay, let's get into that first breach.
So the first, and maybe the most brazen form of cheating in the ballad, is the human proxy. Literally swapping out the person who's supposed to be taking the exam for someone who's a guaranteed pass.
Right. This isn't some high-tech hack. It's a person physically in a chair taking an exam for someone else. The source gives this amazing, almost theatrical image.
He does.
It says, one sly lawyer took the seat meant for a mighty lord, and he just sat there and wrote the whole exam in secret guise.
I mean, it is just a fundamental betrayal of the entire process.
Compl-
And what's really damning is what happened next. The ballad says the scandal shook the whole town down. So people knew, people were outraged. But the cheaters,
They didn't hide. They didn't feel any shame. The ballad says they boasted about it with dark grin.
they got their glory's sake, as they called it.
And that boasting, that tells you everything. It means whatever penalty there was, if any, was nothing compared to the reward. They got the credential, and the public outcry was just noise,
The institution basically failed to bring down the hammer.
which just validated the corruption. It sent a message. This works.
So if the penalty for getting caught is weak, the cheating is just going to adapt. And that physical proxy was, was a bit loud. It caused too much local controversy.
Way too much heat. So the technique had to evolve, and fast. And that brings us to the second method they used, a bit more discreet.
Right. They moved from a physical swap to technological assistance.
It's all about plausible deniability now. So instead of swapping people, they hid them. The narrative talks about one lone youth in secrecy sat hidden from their sight.
And he wasn't using his own knowledge at all. He was being fed the answers in real time.
By a team. It says, 2 legal whisperers fed him words that drifted soft and low, and the mechanism is so specific.
Yeah, the glowing screen beside him showed the answer's gentle glow.
And the ballad deliberately contrasts this, While this is happening, other youths wrote tests in halls all bathed in honest light.
So it's not just a story about one kid cheating. It's showing how the pressure of these high-stakes systems forces the fraud to get more and more sophisticated, more efficient, more secret.
They went from a high-risk physical swap to a hidden, tech-assisted operation.
But hold on. If this institution was built on purity, why didn't these first scandals, which were so blatant, force some kind of systemic cleanup?
That's the million-dollar question.
Why did the failure just push the cheaters to get smarter instead of forcing the college to, actually enforce its standards?
And that is the critical turning point. The failure wasn't just on the individuals, it was systemic apathy. The system couldn't or wouldn't correct itself. And that gave the corrupt players the confidence to go to the next level.
So they moved beyond just passing the test.
Oh, yeah. They moved on to outright fabricating the credentials themselves, forging the paperwork needed for high office.
Which takes us out of the exam hall and deep into the administrative records. This is where we get this concept of ghostly ink.
Right. So this next stage is all about faking the high-level paperwork. We hear about a scholar who walks into court with a parchment that the ballad calls bright as lies. This is the document meant to legitimize his entire career.
And the detail here, the administrative detail that blows it all open, is just fantastic.
That's incredible.
The document has the chancellor's seal on it, the highest authority. But the ballad says the seal was made with ghostly ink, long, cold, and dead.
Why? Because the chancellor himself had left 2 moons before. The person who supposedly signed it wasn't even there.
It's such a clever tactic. It's not just faking his signature, it's using administrative lag. It's banking on the idea that an official stamp, even from someone who's already gone, is just too hard to challenge in a big, slow bureaucracy.
You're exploiting the time lag. The forgery becomes real just because nobody can be bothered to unwind it.
And as if that wasn't bad enough, the institution itself then commits the ultimate betrayal. It retroactively changes its own rules to make the fraud legitimate.
This is where it all gets inverted. The Low College, the institution's name, was initially absent from the scroll.
Meaning its graduates weren't approved for these high legal positions. The rules explicitly block them.
Explicitly. But even though he was barred by rule and right, the graduate was welcomed through the doors of high office anyway. The system just let the unqualified person in first.
And then the cover-up followed.
The compliance followed the crime. The ballad says, 20 days thereafter, low. The list was changed overnight. They literally moved the goalposts to fit the crime.
It's not passive acceptance, though. That's an active institutional cover.
On a massive scale.
The source puts it so dramatically. It says it was as though the stars themselves were moved, which is such a powerful way to say that a fundamental, supposedly unchangeable law was altered just to accommodate one person's fraud.
The institution chose the criminal over its own integrity.
And once that happens, the floodgates are open. This just became the new normal. The ballad points out another youth who made next ascent, even though he was lacking even the first degree required for such intent.
Didn't even have a bachelor's degree, a basic fundamental prerequisite.
Yeah, the chancellor made a big show of it, thundering at lecturers stained with fault. But it was all meaningless. It was just theater.
Pure theater, because the unqualified people kept rising.
So you end up with a system that's just built on theater and impunity. And the very people meant to guard the realm are the ones who got there by cheating, and who watched the system bend its own rules to protect them.
Which brings us right to the ultimate consequence. What happens when your gatekeepers are the very people who smash the gate on their way in?
That's the crucial shift for you, the listener. We're moving from how they cheated to what they did with that power. And the outcome is just. It's a profound contradiction. These lawyers, they didn't fail. The ballad says they rose high indeed.
Their success basically proved that corruption was a winning strategy.
And the most chilling part is that they are still, quote, unchallenged in their vault. The lack of accountability just perpetuates itself. It's the ultimate betrayal of the system.
And the ballad is very clear about the real-world damage. This isn't some abstract academic problem. This became a catastrophe for the public.
Right. These actors didn't just practice law badly. They weaponized their positions. They bent the law like reeds.
That is such a potent image. A reed has no strength. It suggests the law stopped being this firm, objective thing, the backbone of society, and just became a flexible tool for the powerful.
It's what analysts call regulatory capture, right?
It's a textbook case. The people meant to enforce the rules are now using the rules to get rich and protect their friends.
And the results are devastating. They freed the thief who shook the bank. A clear nod to protecting high-level financial crime.
Which is what happens when your legal class operates above the law. But even worse, maybe, is the claim that they masked a nation's needs.
Meaning they used their power to hide corruption, to hide injustice, to basically pull the wool over everyone's eyes.
And if you're looking for the absolute peak of this failure, the source gives it to us. It points to one person who climbed to rule the realm itself and snapped the law in twain.
So the corruption graduates from just enabling crime to actually seizing the government.
He didn't just bend the law or ignore it. He broke it, snapped it in half. He became sovereign over the very system that was meant to produce his opposite.
And everyone saw it. His mischief danced on foreign screens. The corruption became an international spectacle, a complete joke.
And that's really the point of the ballad. The system didn't just fail. It became an engine for creating its own destroyers. They used administrative weakness, they used institutional complicity, and eventually the public just got tired and they took total control.
So let's quickly recap the 3 layers of failure we've seen in the Ballad of the Low College.
Let's.
First, you have this adaptable individual deception. It moves from physical proxies to hidden tech. Second, you have the active institutional complicity, the ghostly ink, and the rules being changed overnight.
And finally, the ultimate systemic betrayal. These corrupt individuals rise to the very top, operate with complete impunity, and bend the law to their will.
Which brings us to that tragic conclusion. The initial promise was that the law would guard the realm.
But the ballad shows us the harsh reality. The law now only guards the bold. It protects the very people who were bold enough to break it in the first place.
So what does this tale of the low college mean for you, our listener, trying to navigate a world full of these kinds of powerful institutions? If the very foundations meant to uphold the law are this compromised, if they allow people who snap the law in twain to rise to the top, what confidence can you have in the systems around you?
It forces you to look past the official credentials, past the fancy titles, and ask a really fundamental question. When you see the rules changing after the fact, or when you see someone in a high office who lacks the most basic qualifications, are you just seeing a mistake? Or are you seeing the system itself confirming that for the powerful, the rules are only suggestions? I think that awareness is the greatest lesson of the low college.
Something to think about. Join us next time for another deep dive.
Thank you very much for watching.